Before we start the episode, I just want to bring your attention to a crowdfunding campaign that we're doing here at Popular Front. If you go to www.popularfront.co/10k, so that's 10k, we're trying to raise 10 grand because Popular Front is moving very fast, and we feel like to capitalize on the momentum we've created, we really need a little bit of money on the side just to buy new equipment, pay a few volunteers, and go to different places. So yeah, www.popularfront.co/10k. If you're in the position to put your hands in the pocket and support us, please do think about it. This is Popular Front, a podcast focused on the very niche and kind of geeky details of modern warfare with me, Jake Hanrahan. Today we're doing an episode giving you some updates on the clashes in Hong Kong, because what started off as a protest is now kind of looking like the start of what they would probably want to be a revolution. So we're speaking to Rachel Yeo, a local journalist with an independent newspaper in Hong Kong, and she's going to be telling us all about the increasing violence from police, the response from protesters, which is also violent, and how all of this is starting to look a little bit more than a protest that's going to blow over. In fact, while we were speaking, I didn't even realize the first actual live round by police had been fired in this latest round of protests. Please do consider supporting us on Patreon, patreon.com/popularfront. The last podcast episode we did on Popular Front about Hong Kong, the protests were not peaceful, but mostly peaceful. You know what I mean? The majority of them were still kind of peaceful. There were clashes here and there, but now things have changed, right? Like a lot. So maybe you can explain what's happened in the last 2 weeks, basically, in Hong Kong, or the last month or whatever, since things got really violent.
Okay, yeah, so things have been getting quite bad because a lot of protesters are getting very angry about the government's lack of action and the ineffectiveness of them fulfilling the 5 demands. So, and also because of the fact that the police have been using more and more brutality methods, such as shooting tear gas or pepper spray or beating it up, even not just protesters but also civilians as well. So I think all of this actually contributed to a lot of dissent and a lot of anger at for the whole for most of the Hong Kongers. So a lot of them actually try to justify that because because the violence is seems to be the only way to get the attention from other from the government and also from the world, and they feel that peaceful methods are no longer useful anymore. So this is what they have been resorting to, because they feel that it is the government that is driving them to do violent methods like this. So they always sometimes they get condemned by the government, or for example the mainland side, or the police, or the Hong Kong government. Yeah.
And you said about the 5 demands. Maybe you can explain what they are, because here in the West, we see a lot of footage of the protesters, but no one's really, as far as I'm seeing, is explaining fully what these 5 demands are.
Yeah, but basically they want the 5 demands. For example, the first one will be to completely withdraw the extradition bill. So previously what Carrie Lam said was the bill was dead, or it was suspended. But to many of the Hong Kongers, they feel that this is not the correct word to be used. They want her to announce that the bill is withdrawn, but somehow she couldn't even give that word. She couldn't provide that word to the public, and it makes a lot of people wonder maybe she would maybe this is not a legal thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's not actually saying she's going to withdraw it. She just kind of suspended it.
Yeah, so a lot of reporters and a lot of citizens have been asking what is it officially withdrawn, but for now she can't really give a proper answer on whether it's actually withdrawn. She just kept emphasizing that the bill is dead. She will not reintroduce the bill again. Yeah, so this is what people are not happy about. They want a permanent withdrawal of the extradition bill. And second of all, people want the withdrawal of the word riot, because on 12th of June it was the first time where police and protesters actually clashed over the extradition bill, and some of the people have been also arrested and beaten up by the police, and also like a lot of violent things started to happen. Yeah, and I believe the government said it was a riot, and people got very angry as well. So they don't want it to be categorized as a riot.
What do they want it to be categorized as, a protest?
Yeah, they would rather it be like they don't want it, they don't want to be labeled as rioters, because for them it's like to for them it's like they are trying to fight for their home and for their city. So it doesn't it for them it does for them it's like the word riot, it is quite a bad, like a bad term. It looks bad on them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So the third one will be to release all arrested protesters without any charges, because I think if I'm not wrong, like more than 800 people have been arrested.
800?
Yeah,
And they're still being held?
yeah, it's still being, like right now there's a clash going on in Xunwan and I believe some Shuipo, and people have been arrested as well, and also like subdued and beaten up by all the riot police. So it's been quite crazy. So yeah, so a lot of them, they demand the protesters to be released without charges. So like for example, no charging them of like for example rioting. Yeah, and then the fourth one will be an independent investigation on police violence, for because they feel that it's a lot of like abuse of their power. So even like for today in Xunwan and in Huaixing district, police were actually like holding pistols, shooting guns with actual bullets for the first time, and also like deploying water cannon trucks. So and also
Wait, bullets? Like, no one shot live rounds though yet, have they?
uh it just happened. Like one of the police actually shot a real bullet, but it was towards the sky. But they were aiming it at they were actually aiming it at the protesters and even to civilians. There was this one civilian who was actually like begging the police not to shoot, but he was kicked aside by the police, so they didn't really like respond. Yeah, I think it's gone like viral on Twitter.
Wow, I didn't even check. I should have a look at that. So those are the 5 demands, right?
Yeah, one and the last demand is to actually introduce an electoral reform, because currently now, for example, when a new chief executive is being elected, they couldn't citizens cannot actually vote who who their next chief executive can be. It's only restricted to a very small like group of people, which is like mainly businessmen, or like restricted to people from different industries like traders.
So it's kind of elitist.
Yeah, it's kind of elitist. Those, yeah. So only a few people can actually vote who they want to see to be, and those people are actually they actually have close ties with the mainland. So it is very likely that the chief executive has to be, supportive towards Beijing and whatnot. That's why a lot of people feel that like the CE is actually like a puppet of the Beijing government.
Yeah. So what would you say the protests are now? Because when they first started, they were anti-extradition bill, but now from the outside to me, it looks like this is the start of a revolution. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I would say it has definitely gone beyond the extradition bill, especially now as the protests get more and more like intense. A lot of people are actually more angry towards the police and towards the police because of the violence that they have used towards protesters, and also to the government, who seems to not be doing anything to address their demands. So to them, they are fighting for something that is like greater than the extradition bill. They are fighting for greater like democracy. That they are fighting for the freedom that they used to have when they were under the British, like the under British rule.
Right, but how come like you're seeing a lot of British colonial flags and even American flags being waved, which of course gives like, online communists kind of fuel to talk rubbish. But why are they doing that? What's the reason for waving those flags in the protest?
Yeah, okay. So I did see a lot of UK and US flags being waved. Like for example, in the airport, like I've seen some of them actually waving the US flag, and I believe it's because they want to attract attention from the superpower nations, like for example the US, and it did work to an extent because like a lot of American politicians, like including Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, they have actually like tried to step out and speak out against the protests. So I'm not sure, and even for Donald Trump, he says he's trying to like get Xi Jinping to meet up with the protesters directly to sort of stop the whole thing the whole protest that is going on. But yeah, I don't know if, I mean, he has definitely gotten the attention of the the people from the US and from the Western side, but I'm not sure if it will actually be like effective in the long run. Yeah, so we have to see whether the world leaders will actually meet up and also try to discuss how they can actually help like Hong Kong in this crisis.
So it's kind of symbolic, would you say, the use of the flags?
Yeah, more like symbolic and also like to raise international awareness.
Sure, sure. And in talking about the protests, like when it first started, it seemed very kind of disjointed, but now, like very quickly, it seems incredibly well organized. Is there, are there specific groups within the protest? Do they have names? Are there leaders? What's the dynamic of it right now?
There are no actual leaders in the whole extradition bill movement because from what happened in the umbrella movement when there were prominent faces like for example Joshua Wong, he it became quite easy for the it became very easy for the authorities to hunt down the key leaders of the Occupy Central movement, whereas for now people have learned from what happened back then. So they have chose to cover themselves up with like masks and helmets and to conceal their identity, and also even just like trying to cover up their footsteps. So for example, when they take the MTR, they don't use their proper octopus cards, which is like cards that like metro cards, because they feel that the authorities can use like the track records to find out where they have been and whatnot. So they have been resorting to using like coins or like just like single use tickets to make sure that they don't get found out by the authorities.
Right, to cover their tracks.
Yes, yes, and also like definitely social media is playing a huge part of the movement as well. So for example, there's this platform called LIHKG. It's called Linten in Chinese, and it's actually the platform where protesters have been using to plan out future protests. So a lot of discussion actually goes on to there, and maybe they will have like a poll on like, oh, where should we go next, or what should we do in this particular march? Should we retreat, or should we like get more people to come? So usually this platform is the top, I would say, is the most popular like platform for protesters to discuss their tactics. There's another platform called Telegram, and also there are a lot of like groups that are, for example, they are specific to they are specific to like different marches. So for example, there may be a group for the airport march, the airport protest. There may be a group for uncooperation movement in the MTR, where protesters try to block the trains in order to as their way of like protest to stop the people from like going to work in the peak hours.
It seems really well organized, and I've been covering, war and protests all over the world for so long, and I've never seen this level of organization in a protest. What is it you think about Hong Kong that means that these protests are just so well organized? Like, you guys seem to be on point at every protest. They seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time they know what they're doing, but there are also times where that because there are no leaders, so it's very easy to sidetrack and people will be quite unsure on where to head to next. Or like for example, if there's a uncooperation movement in the MTR station, so maybe there are plans for protesters to block the trains during the peak hour, but maybe on the day itself they may cancel it because there are not that many people participating in it, or they feel that maybe the citizens are getting a bit annoyed by whole uncooperation movement. So they may either cancel it, or they may delay, or they may just postpone it, or change to another alternative like way. And also sometimes, like, I've seen a lot of like dialogue sessions and people commenting back and forth on like what to do and what not to do. So yeah, most of the time I would say they are on form, but there are also times where they may feel a bit like lost, or they are not sure what to do next, because there's no like actual like leaders to be leading them.
Right. So you think that maybe the decentralized nature of it is hindering them slightly?
Yeah, slightly, but it's still good because they can't be found out that easily. But it's also a bit of a disadvantage in this sense. Yeah.
And can you tell me about these frontliners? I've read about these. These seem to be like the hardcore protesters. Have you heard this term? You know, the frontliners.
Yeah.
Who are they?
The role of the front line is typically to like um to clash, sort of like to clash with the police. So they are typically they are always like the ones blocking the roads with things like metal fences or like cones. And also, if the police try to advance, they will try to hit back by, like, for example, throwing like Molotov.
Like Molotov cocktail, right? And petrol bombs.
Yeah, Molotov cocktails, and also like throwing like household items like umbrellas. And it's just, I think they are sort of like fueled by emotion as well, because a lot of them are definitely not very they are definitely very unhappy with what's going on, and they feel that going on the front line is their way of like protesting, and their way of like getting their demands to be heard by the government. And
Yeah, well, like any time the police are attacking like that, you know, if they're gonna have an effective resistance, you do need people like that. To be honest, you know.
yeah, so there's people on the front line, and then there's also people who are doing the logistics side of the whole movement. So they will help like these frontliners, like, for example, they will give helmets, they will pass on masks, yeah, just for them to make sure that they are well equipped on the front line. So not everyone will be brave enough to go on the front line, but there are other ways of helping.
Right, and then they tell them where to go and stuff, right? Like this area, the police are here, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So sort of quite, they're very organized, because there's different groups of people responsible for different aspects of the whole protest, for typical protest.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about this police brutality that the frontliners are fighting against, because I've been keeping track of it, and it seems to be every week it's stepping up. You know, they seem to be fast escalating. You know, maybe you can tell us how that happened and what they've been doing.
Yeah, okay. So far, the latest methods of police brutality include, like I said earlier, holding the pistol at eye level and threatening to shoot protesters and even the citizens who happen to live nearby. And to many, it's very ridiculous, because like, why are they even aiming their guns at civilians? It doesn't really make any sense. And also the fact that they are deploying water cannons is also very questionable, because water cannons are known to be lethal, and they can and the water that when they shoot, it may contain like chemical irritants, or even like dye, like, sort of like they try to color the water with air. Yeah. So to sort of like to track down the protesters who are nearby. Yeah. So a lot of them actually feel that it's quite dangerous, and it might actually harm or even kill someone. Yeah. And also typically they use tear gas as a way to disperse protesters. And some of the tear gas have been known to be expired.
That makes it more toxic, right?
Yeah, apparently it makes it more toxic, but the police said it, like, they are trying to deny that this is true. And then they are also using things like pepper spray directly at the protesters, and also even resorting to beating up citizens, or I mean not citizens, like beating up protesters and subduing them before they arrest them. So it is quite, like, it is quite crazy, because they have been shooting they have been shooting people in the eyes. So a lot of protesters are very angry. So for example, one of the one of the volunteers who is in charge of like medical aid got shot in the right eye, if I'm not wrong, and and apparently she is like, her condition is that her retina got ruptured or something like that, and this caused a lot of anger towards like the whole Hong Kong, and they actually came to the airport the next day to protest against the police shooting her in the eye, and then they are always like chanting for her to return the eye, like to for the police to return the eye. And now I think just yesterday they shot another guy on the eye as well.
And what are they shooting them with? Beanbag rounds or
Yeah, beanbag rounds. Yeah, if I'm not wrong, it's beanbag rounds.
Jesus? And what about the medical teams? I've seen a lot of footage of protester medical teams. Who are these people?
Yeah, most of them they're actually like volunteers. If I'm not wrong, they are also like working as like nurses or like doctors as their full time jobs. But because they feel that there's a need for them to come out on the streets to help these people on the front line. So a lot of them are actually doing this on a voluntary basis. Yeah.
Wow. And there have been protests in Hong Kong for several years. They've happened, the umbrella movement, for example. Have you ever seen the violence from the police at this level? The police are maybe being more violent this time.
Yeah, I would think so, because actually they are not like showing their police identity. And yesterday, during the march at, I think at Kwun Tong, their faces are completely covered. So it gives a lot of suspicion that, oh, why are they covering their faces? Is it because they are doing something that is not right? Like, why are they doing that? If they are not doing anything that is illegal, then they shouldn't be covering their faces or concealing to conceal their identities in the first place.
What about this situation with the so-called triads? When these guys, all the white t-shirts came out and just started beating people, and then there was a stabbing at the Lennon Wall. Like, what's happening?
The very first incident happened in Yuen Long, where white shirt people who are allegedly triad members have been beating up like citizens inside the MTR station, and a lot of them are actually just like innocent bystanders, or like just or just like protesters coming home. So they've been beating people up indiscriminate. Like, it's a very they've been just beating people up without like a care or anything. So it actually caused the whole protest movement to be even more emotionally charged, because now triad members are they are involved in the whole protest, and now and occasionally some of them may even pop up in different districts. Like for example, in North Point, there were people beating up protesters as well. And a few days ago, like you said, there's also a stabbing incident when there was this man who went up to like a few people, and he asked what are their thoughts about the protest. And then when they said they are supportive towards like democracy and towards the Hong Kong people, then he began to stab them. Not sure if that man is actually a member from the triad, but it's definitely been worrying for a lot of like citizens, because they have been living like nearby, and to see this violence happening near at their doorsteps is like quite crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think this will escalate? Do you think you'll see more of the kind of triad inclusion? Because when they did it before, it didn't really work. They beat a load of people up, and people still came to the streets. In fact, more people came to the streets. What do you think? You think this tactic will be used again or not?
Yeah, I think that there'll be more popping up, but I don't think it will be as bad as like the police beating people up.
Yeah, like the police have almost taken the violence up a level now.
Yeah, I still think that the police are more violent, because they have all the sophisticated weapons, whereas for triad members they are still using like like sticks and just like maybe knives or something like that. Yeah.
Where do you think these triads came from? I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying that it's clear to them at least that Beijing sent them. The Chinese government sent them. What do you think?
Yeah. They have been allegedly paid by the Chinese government to commit these acts. And some of them even feel that they are associating with like pro-Beijing lawmakers. So like for example, if Junius Ho, yeah, he was seen like shaking the hands of one of the members in white. So it gave a lot of like impression that, oh, maybe pro-Beijing like lawmakers are actually involved with the riots. So it makes people even more angry because they don't trust they really don't trust the government at all. And now to see like lawmakers supporting these like riots, like it makes them even more angry and makes them even more wanting to come to the streets to protest against this.
Yeah. And I've heard that, a lot of the protesters are obviously students and they'll be going back to school and back to university in September. I've heard people say they think that the whole thing might die down by then. But to me, it looks like I couldn't imagine that. What do you think?
I actually don't think it might die down anytime soon because they're actually planning to skip classes during the month of September.
Really? Okay. How do you think Beijing might react? Because there has been talks of, the military are amassing on the border in Shenzhen or wherever. What do you think's going to happen now? For me, I don't know. It doesn't look good, but you're on the ground every day. What do you think?
I really do think that if the situation doesn't improve, then Beijing will do something about it. I feel that they are sending warning signs now. And it's clear that they don't... And their human rights track record hasn't been the best also, I would say. So I won't be surprised if they actually send the army down to try to stifle the whole situation. Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen, but,
Yeah. How can they face off against the army? There's no weapons there.
Exactly. So it's... For me, I personally feel like very worried every week. Every weekend is just like I'm just on the edge, like just like wondering, oh, what's gonna happen next? Is the army gonna come? Is Beijing gonna finally intervene? And people are also worried because it might become June 4th again, like back in
Tiananmen.
Yes, like Tiananmen. There's been like worries that have been going on. So I hope it doesn't escalate to this point. But I also hope that the government will sort of like intervene in time and try to communicate with the people, with the citizens, and try to address their demands bit by bit.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Rachel. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
Yeah, I'm good for now.
Okay, cool. And where can people get hold of you if they want to follow your work on Twitter or wherever?
They can follow my Twitter on Rach Porter. It's RACPORTER on both Twitter and Instagram. Yeah, so I do post like updates on the Hong Kong protests from time to time. Yeah, fairly active there. So
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jake. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. That was Rachel Yeo speaking about how the increasingly violent clashes in Hong Kong have turned an anti-extradition protest movement into pro-democracy movement in what is looking like the start of what the protesters at least want to be a revolution in Hong Kong. And like I said at the start, we are trying to raise £10,000 because basically all of our equipment is fucked or it's borrowed or it's on its way out. And we also want to be able to commission people to help us build Popular Front, pay volunteers that are currently helping us a little bit on the side. We want to be able to pay them and keep them there with us so we can do a lot more work, a lot more rapidly. And also we want some money on the side so we can go and deploy to breaking situations like what's happening in Hong Kong. People have said to me, Jake, are you going to go and cover it for Popular Front? This would be great. It would be, but the flights alone are £1,000, and frankly, what we're doing here is all grassroots, all independent, and we do not have the money to just go, £1,000 on flights. It would be nice if we did have some money on the side. So we're trying to raise this 10k. Go to www.popularfront.co/10k, 10k. If you want to support, you can donate via Bitcoin instead if you want. Just let us know what tier you would like for the rewards. A few people have done that. It's all on there. If you go there, if you go to the popularfront.co/10k, it's basically a landing page. There'll be a link to the Indiegogo campaign. We've got 30 days left, around 30 days left. We've raised about 35% of it, which is amazing. I'm really happy with it, but we just need to kind of get over the next hurdle and move it towards the 10k. So like I said, if you are in a position where you can put your hands in your pocket, please do consider supporting us if you like what we're doing and you want to see more. If you're not in that position, for example, if you're skin, please do not feel obliged to send us money. In fact, if you don't have money, don't get involved with the 10k campaign. There are many ways to support, and that includes sharing it, showing it to rich people, telling them why they should get involved, So yeah, if you got the money, please do consider supporting. If not, please do consider sharing it and showing it to other people. www.popularfront.co/10k. Also, as usual, we are on the Patreon. There are more than 35 bonus episodes on there and more coming every single month. That is patreon.com/popularfront. If you want to support in a different way, go to popularfront.co/support. There's many different ways you can do it on there. This episode was sponsored by thedefensepost.com, defense with an S. Check them out, they're very good. There's a lot of daily conflict articles. Also, please do subscribe to us on YouTube. We've got a brand new documentary out. It's called Raqqa Patrol, Guarding Against ISIS Sleeper Cells, where I was on patrol with the Asaish, the kind of military police in Raqqa, who are up against ISIS sleeper cells, basically. So ISIS has lost all their ground, all the front lines are gone, but ISIS are very much still there. Raqqa is still a battlefield 2 years on after being liberated because ISIS are launching all these attacks. They claim to have launched 32 attacks this year and reckon they've killed 126 people in the process just in the first 8 months of 2019. So when people say, oh yeah, ISIS is over, no, go to popularfront.co/Syria and send them the YouTube link that's in there and make them watch Raqqa Patrol so they can see the reality of what's going on in the ground. The Asaish don't get a lot of attention, and often they've got the worst equipment and are doing some of the hardest kind of gnarly work on the ground, just hoping not to get blown up by these sleeper cells. So I'm really glad we did it, and if you want to watch it, please do, and please do consider sharing it. Show your mate. We only had like 1 day to do it. I was out there working on other stuff, and it's a bit kind of ratchet like the way it's put together, but we did the best with what we had, I think. Also follow us on instagram.com/popular.front. We're increasingly getting trolled, and people are reporting us, so it might get shut down soon, but follow it if you want. Also on Twitter, twitter.com/popularfrontco, and my Twitter is Jake_Hanrahan, HANRAHAN. Thank you very much to the following supporters. Without your help, none of this would be possible. They are Anthony Kabarek, Adam Berg-Snyder, Axel Iverson, Brian McLaughlin, Callum Ross, Chad Walker, Christopher Martin, Dan Dunham, Daniel Shearer, Diana Gorvanek, Emiliano, Emily Molly, Fletcher Tate, Jack Mayhoff, her funny guy, James, the notorious centrist, Joanne Stocker, Joel Tambusi, Josh, Juan Hernandez, Kay Hardy Roberts, Kyle M. Payne, Lawrence Abrahams, LH, Laika Maddock, You Think You're Funny, Margaret Bowling, Moody Al-Rashid, Noah, Ari, Patrick Bronte, Peter McCormick from What Bitcoin Did, Q-Ball, Russia Alakidi, Ryan Sandercock, Skatu Music, Sebastian from the Discord, Sarushe Hawazi, Stephen Davila, Teddy, Tom Lochrin, Tony Bin, Vida Provost, and Zachary Hinch. Thank you so much for supporting us. Honestly, if we didn't have this core, everything would fall apart very quickly. So thank you very much to all the Patreons. It's been amazing to see this grow over the last, year and a half. And the more money we get there, the more Popular Front you'll get. I'm sure you've seen the level of content increase rapidly with the amount of money we get. So thank you very much. Please, everybody, do consider supporting. Patreon.com/popularfront. Music in this episode, the intro was by Home, and the outro was by Sam Black /Son of Old. Go to his SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/son-of-old.